Good morning. Glad you're joining us for the virtual service today. I hope you're doing well. In virtual land, I so enjoy being able to come to you each week to preach God's good news message. Well, today we're going to be looking at the gospel, specifically there in Matthew, where Jesus actually calls Simon, who he renames Peter, to be a disciple. It's a beautiful interaction that happens, and there's a couple lessons that I think we can learn from it. So open your eyes and your ears, your heart, and let's hear what God has to say to us today. Caesarea Philippi is up on the northern border near Lebanon in what is known as the Golan Heights. And it's where the River Jordan begins. And it was established originally as a Roman/Greek retreat center for soldiers who were in Palestine, where no fun could be had due to the kosher rules and the laws around the land. So the soldiers would retreat up there in order to let loose, to have fun, to remind them of home and to have a little taste of home. We all like to have a taste of home from time to time. And this was a place where the Roman soldiers could take their hat off, take their armor off, and just be. And the patron god of Caesarea was Pan, the god of everything. So all pagan gods could be celebrated, regardless of what you worshipped. It was allowed there. Again, they wanted their soldiers to feel fully comfortable to worship and behave and act any way they wanted to. This was universalistic belief at its finest. Anything and everything goes for worship, however you want to do it or not do it. And so this was a place they would come and they would worship, some of them, whoever. And as a result, there were gods and temples and statues all over this area, and all were good. Everything went. All was good, as Bob Marley would say. Be happy. It's for you here. No one was left out. Regardless of your speed or belief, there was something for you. And if you have ever been there, you would know that there is an epsilon, if you will, a walkway where you could see the whole city. You could walk along it and many temples and places of worship across the town. And I've always imagined the passage that we read just a moment ago as Jesus was walking along this esplanade, looking at all the ways the world worshipped, looking at all the different gods that were out there. And he asks an interesting question as they're walking along the walkway. His disciples are looking around. They're seeing things they've never seen before. They're seeing gods they've never seen before. And Jesus asks a question. Who do people say that the Son of Man is? Jesus is preparing his listener of this pagan town in this very Gentile area where anything goes. And it was very clear for all to see that day as they walked. And his disciples answered quite well. You got a picture. There's probably people all around, Roman soldiers and other pagans and people from all over coming to celebrate. This was the Las Vegas of the place, of the area, if you will. And they're listening to Jesus. And some of his disciples chime in. Who do people say you are? Well, John the Baptist is what most people think you are. Not a bad guess, I guess, since Jesus and John the Baptist were cousins and probably looked a little alike. Not to mention he had just died, so they were thinking about him, and perhaps they thought, it's John the Baptist. He didn't really die. We heard a rumor. It must not be true. Then someone else chimed in. Some think you're Jeremiah or Elijah or one of the other prophets. In other words, he is just another prophet. You're just a good man, Jesus, a good teacher. And so in their minds, Jesus is just one of the thousands of prophets who have come to tell people to shape up, ship out. That's what prophets did. They would come in and they would say, here's God's law, his right, good, and true law. You're not following it, so get your stuff together or God's going to smite you. Not much different than today. Those people, if asked who Jesus is, the common answer you will get is, well, he was a good man, nice teacher, had some nice things to say. In other words, Jesus was just a person. So Jesus does something interesting here. He says, okay, so that's what people around pagan town are saying. But what are you saying? Who do you say that I am? And Simon Peter, the outspoken, the one who always spoke before he thought, who shot from the hip, chimes in quickly, and he nails it. He gets it right on the spot. He gets an A+. Simon says, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Boom goes the dynamite. He's dead on. He couldn't be any more accurate. And by Messiah, when he says you are the Messiah, it's a very interesting word choice that he used. You see, by Messiah, he is identifying that he is the promised one that they had been waiting for since the end of the Old Testament, Malachi. 400 years of waiting and wandering, and now the rescuer is here. And Simon, who is Peter, says, "You are the anointed one, the promised made flesh, as spoken about in the Old Testament passage of Exodus, read just a moment ago by Deborah, the one that would come from the line of Joseph and down through Moses, the one Son of the living God." Don't miss this. In the midst of all the dead idols around Peter, he's saying, you are the only God in town that is alive. The rest are man-made, are dead, made of wood or stone, but you are alive, and you are God, and you have come to rescue us. Peter just hit the ball out of the ballpark. And we see this wonderful exchange of words between Peter, who at the time was Simon, and Jesus says, yes, and today you will no longer be Simon, but Peter, a.k.a. Latin word for rock. And I'm going to use you, Rocky, if you will, to preach good news. I'm going to use you, Rocky, to build my church. Now, some of our Catholic brothers and sisters would say this was Jesus naming Peter as the first pope. Perhaps he was, but the bigger miracle that was taking place was that God opened the ears and the eyes and the heart of Peter to see and to hear clearly. And as a result, he confesses with his mouth that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God. It's his confession of faith, and this is Jesus confirming him in his faith. You are Simon. You're in. You're mine. You're marked as mine forever. And I will call you Peter, my beloved. And today I will begin building my church, not on the back of Peter as the first pope, but on the confession that Peter taught us. And it's on that confession that the gates of Hades, that hell will not prevail. Listen, I love today's pope. I think he's wonderful. He's done some wonderful things. But he will not stop the gates of Hades from falling on your back. Only the confession of Jesus will do that. Listen, if it was built on the back of Peter, he failed miserably. If he truly was the first pope and the church of God was built upon him, he failed. You see, just a few chapters down the road, we're going to see him deny Jesus 3 times, something that Jesus predicted and told him, you will deny me 3 times tonight. You might remember, Peter said, there's no way I'm going to deny you. I'll die with you if I have to. And sure enough, he did. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And then the rooster crowed, as you might remember, reminding him of what Jesus had told him. You'll deny me before the rooster crows tonight. It's why I love the rooster on top of our church. It reminds me when Jen and I come through 3 years ago, last month, in my first Sunday here, I told you that I am a man made of flesh. I have flaws. And you see that rooster up there? It's a reminder that I too am a denier. I'm a hider. I'm a runner. And I desperately need the hope of Jesus. And you might remember I told you that is all of us. The playing field is level. We are all made of this stuff. And I need you to know, church family, that I will fail you at some point along the way. Don't want to, but I will, because I'm made of this. I'm made of the same stuff Peter is made of. And just like he failed over and over and over again, he was forgiven over and over and over again. Why? Because Peter and I are in the same boat. And you are in the same boat, made of flesh, broken and sinful. But not Jesus. He's not broken and sinful. He's perfect. And he will never fail you. Yes, Peter walked away from Jesus that day, that night, denying him. But Jesus never walked away from him. In fact, one of the first things we see Jesus doing after the resurrection is greeting Peter after his long night of fishing for nothing, feeling guilty and sorry for himself, regretting his regret, regretting what he had done, regretting his whole situation. And rather than meeting Peter on the seashore with a scowl on his face and a finger pointing at him, "I told you so," he met him with a smile and his arms open wide, with a hug and a reminder that I marked you as mine forever, not just on your good day, but I marked you as my own forever, even on your worst day. You're mine. And then Jesus built a campfire, took some of their fish, invited his friends and the other disciples who were with him. He made breakfast for them. And he reminded them all, I'm still in. I'm with you. I'm for you. Not because Peter is good or worthy, or the friends were good or worthy, but because Jesus is good and faithful. And he marked you, Peter, and he marked all of us. And he said, today, if you believe, return to me. And so, friends, I ask you first, who do you say Jesus is? Is he Messiah? Is he Lord? Is he your beloved Father? And if so, return to him fresh and anew today. Perhaps even right now. Let's return to him by professing what we know to be true in the Apostles' Creed. And let's do it without crossing our fingers. Let's do it without crossing our fingers. Amen.